If you're like us, you're probably tired of flipping through outdated and expensive regulation books and struggling to understand the rule or guidance you're after. eRigs is the first web and mobile app version of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, helping fleets of all types and sizes better access and understand their regulatory obligations. eRigs is always up to date and allows fleet safety professionals to not only read the rules, but also dig into FMCSA guidance and learn more about complex regulatory topics from industry experts. Highlight, bookmark, and take detailed notes right from the app and access them on any of your devices. And easily share a digital version of the regulations with your drivers so that they too can better understand the rules. eRigs was developed by safety professionals for safety professionals. Try it out for free at erigs.app. All right, everyone, welcome to episode 37 of Trucksafe Live, show where we and our guests tackle the hot button issues impacting highway transportation. I'm Brandon with Trucksafe and Childress Law, both of which are dedicated to helping motor carriers develop and maintain cutting-edge safety programs. Got Brian here with me in studio. Welcome back, Brian.
Howdy, howdy.
Rob is supposed to be here with us, and we've got an empty chair for him there, clearly, but he's going to be running a little late, so if he jumps on here, we'll add him. But for now, just Brian and me. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in with us. If you're here, say hey in the comments so we can see who's around. And as we go along, as always, if you have any thoughts or any questions about what we're discussing, throw them in the chat, and we will bring them up on screen if we have time. Want to first thank the sponsor of this episode of Trucksafe Live, which is Taking the Higher Road, a Legacy Builders and Freight Waves production. Taking the Higher Road is a special podcast dedicated to addressing the trucking industry's greatest challenges: driver recruiting, retention, and compliance. Take this off your face here, Brian.
Yeah,
how about
thanks.
that?
I'll just sit up tall.
Each week, host Jeremy Raymer, 20-year industry veteran and founder of Driver Reach and Legacy Builders, interviews industry experts and thought leaders who bring their insights to the driver life cycle. Be sure to check them out wherever you get your podcast. Thanks to Taking the Higher Road. Really appreciate it. Today's topic is preparing for roadside inspections. Felt like it was a timely topic given that Roadcheck is coming up here in the next couple of weeks. So that is the main topic of today. Not only Roadcheck, but preparing for roadside inspections more broadly. Seems to be a pretty important topic, obviously, for drivers and carriers.
It's one of the main reasons, if you want to control your hours of service, control your vehicle maintenance.
There you go.
If they're not looking at your stuff, then they're probably not going to look at your logbook either.
Yeah. Take that advice from Brian. But anyway, before we get to the main topic for today, we're excited to have a special guest with us today. So really looking forward to that. But we've got a few other things to talk about before we get there. First of all, a couple things going on at Trucksafe. First up is our boot camp, our Trucksafe Fleet Compliance Boot Camp. This is our 2-day in-person conference that we put on a couple times each year, where we spend that entire time talking about pretty much nothing but DOT regulations and helping fleet safety professionals to dig into them, understand how they work within their operations, and really spending time with them answering questions and stuff that comes up. So we've got that coming up in Indianapolis, September 25th and 26th. Thanks to USI for sponsoring this year's boot camp. If you're interested in joining us, check it out over at trucksafebootcamp.com. Space will fill up quickly. We're already pretty well along in terms of registration, so check that out sooner rather than later if you want to join us.
It's the interactive piece of that is what makes it so great. Yeah. I mean, that usually spills over into the reception after day one, and at free times and stuff like that. To be able just to continue that conversation and not just have it boom, 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 and move on. That's the best part of that boot camp.
Yeah, the networking is very valuable, and and not to mention you'll get to hear Brian talk about stuff.
Vehicle maintenance.
Yeah, vehicle maintenance.
That's my thing.
There you go. If for no other reason, you come to hear Brian talk. Anyway, trucksafebootcamp.com. Next, I'll mention our Trucksafe network. If you're not a network member, I'd recommend you join that. You could do so over at trucksafenetwork.com. This is a space for safety professionals to gather together, learn from one another, ask questions, and also access all of our DOT-related content that we push out very regularly through the network. You can get it over at trucksafenetwork.com or scan that QR code on the screen and download our app in the App Store or the Google Play Store. We hope to see you there. All right. Okay, enough about us. Let's talk about a couple of things going on in the industry. We like to do this at the beginning of our shows, just kind of make sure we're keeping on top of some of the safety-related, regulatory-related type issues that have come up over the last couple of weeks since our last show. So the first one I want to look at is this story I saw come through from FreightWaves. It's titled, Crash Data Involving New Truck and Bus Drivers Getting Worse, which doesn't sound great. Let's see here. So article says, deaths resulting from large truck crashes where newly licensed drivers are involved continues to rise, according to recent government data. But a proposed safety requirement that could help reduce those deaths will likely be delayed again. They go on to point out some of the data that came out from FMCSA, from their large truck and bus crash study that they do every few years. Percentage of fatal large truck and bus crashes involving new entrant carriers has climbed from 4.6% to 7.4% from 2017 to 2022. In 2022, those crashes resulted in 494 deaths and over $5.5 billion in cost. So this seems to be an issue with new entrant carriers.
Yeah, more so than the newly licensed drivers that they referenced in the beginning. I think it's more aimed at those new entrance carriers, but I do wonder if those numbers are a little skewed because of the, when rates were great, there were so many drivers that went out, got their own authority, and started running freight. So there was more of them. Yeah. So I wonder if more crashes, more trucks, new entrants, more crashes. So I wonder if that plays into it a little bit.
It probably does.
But it is definitely concerning that, we're seeing those crash rates on the rise.
Yeah, I think from that same study, I think overall crashes are down a little bit across the industry, but it looks like from this article at least, and from these FMCSA statements, that amongst the new entrant motor carriers, so carriers that have gotten a DOT number and have been around for less than 18 months, those are new entrant carriers, crashes for that group of carriers specifically seems to be on the rise. So the question is, what do we do about that? One of the things posed in the article is something the FMCSA has been toying around with for many years. They've never pulled the trigger on it. Is some kind of a new entrant exam, like a knowledge exam.
A written exam.
A written exam. Right now we have the new entrant safety audit that new entrants have to go through, but those are pretty cursory audits. They're looking, usually in my experience, they're looking for give us one MVR for one driver, give us one med card, give us logs for one driver. Very easy to pass those in my experience. So.
I'd be curious to see what would be on some sort of written test that would equate to lowering crash rates. That would be what questions are they going to ask that would affect crash rates? I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, I mean, it would presumably all be about knowledge of the regulations, and I guess they would say that compliance correlates to crashes, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. All right, second article here I wanted to point out. Sorry for my voice, by the way. I have allergy problems going on right now, unfortunately. FMCSA looks to streamline tracking of motor carriers. This is all about FMCSA's proposal that they published last week, I think, or so, to renew their carrier registration system. Right now, if anybody is familiar with this system, it's called the Unified Registration System, URS. It has been in place for several years now. It's the online system where motor carriers go to register for a new DOT number or to get operating authority, that type of stuff. It's pretty dated at this point. And so according to the article and according to the Federal Register notice, they are considering moving to a system that they will call FRS. What does that stand for, Brian? It's in this article.
Federal FMCSA registration system.
Well, that's original. FMCSA registration system.
Put a lot of time and effort into that.
Yeah, is what we're apparently moving towards. One of the things we noticed, I think, as we were reading through the register notice and through the article, is that it appears to be pretty heavily aimed at reducing fraud and keeping chameleon carriers out of the system as much as we can. You can see here that the article says the data makes it possible to link individual trucks to the responsible motor carrier, ensuring that commercial motor vehicles are maintained and operated safely. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I think that the big part will be when companies go to start registering all their equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people that aren't doing it the right way now, and they have to put an actual motor carrier with a VIN number.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to shake some things up for them. And it does look like it's going to be a little bit of an intensive process putting all that information in the first time.
Yeah, for sure. Like, how are we going to upload all of these VINs? Is that going to be something we're going to have to do? So you could see here in the article, this new system has been 10 years in the making. There's obviously going to be a whole lot of IT challenges that they're going to have to iron out. I'm not looking forward to that. Anytime we roll out any kind of new IT system for carriers, something always goes wrong, it seems like, and causes a lot of trouble. Hopefully, they've learned those lessons from like the clearinghouse rollout and the login.gov rollout, and maybe they've gotten things buttoned up here.
Yes, 650,000 entities have to enter their information in.
Yikes.
That's going to be a big influx of data.
Seems like a tall task. Oh, man. But anyway, be on the lookout for that. I expect FMCSA will be pushing out some more notifications here on that in the coming months. So, all right, with that last article here I wanted to mention, saw this come out yesterday. This is May 1st if you're watching this in the future, but this article is titled, "Will DEA move to reclassify marijuana affect trucking?" So this is apparently a proposal, according to anonymous sources cited by the Associated Press. The Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, would not necessarily legalize marijuana, but the proposal would move it from a Schedule I drug, which is where it is now with other drugs like heroin and cocaine and stuff like that, to a Schedule III, a category that includes medications such as ketamine and testosterone. These drugs are available by prescription. So the question posed in the obviously this is very early on. I haven't heard anything other than this article posted by Associated Press. But the question is, if that ultimately happens, what does that mean for the trucking industry and for drivers who are subject to DOT-mandated drug tests? Yeah,
I think the thing that interests me, that especially with what you just said, that it's available drugs that are available by prescription.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you have a medical card, or not a medical card, sorry, if you've got the marijuana card,
mm-hmm.
that you can get that basically by prescription.
Yeah.
Does that clear it? And since it's on a 5-panel, is it going to take an actual rulemaking to change that they would or would not test for it anymore?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be unpacked with that. Whether the DEA moves with it or not, doing it with DOT is going to be a whole nother set of parameters.
Yeah, at the very least, as we've said in other shows, DOT has taken a pretty hard stance on marijuana, even for drivers domiciled in states that have legalized it for recreational purposes. DOT has the notice sitting out there that says, we don't care if it's legal in your particular state. If you're a DOT-regulated driver, it is still unlawful for you to use it. And if you test positive, then sorry about you. That's what the notice. That's the notice that exists now. And as you said, the question in my mind is, if this ultimately pushes through, maybe it only pushes through for medicinal marijuana, what does that mean for drivers going forward, and what's the DOT going to have to do in response? Are they going to continue to take a hard stance on it? And if so, maybe they don't do anything in response. They keep everything as is. But if they are going to pull back the reins a little bit for medicinal marijuana, at least, they may have to initiate some kind of rulemaking, would be my guess.
Yeah.
And so, like we talked about before the show, if anything, this is going to take several years
Oh, yeah.
to get to a place where regulated drivers are going to be able to use marijuana for any purpose.
Yeah, as long as we've been waiting on some of the other proposals and things like that.
Yeah.
This is going to be tied up for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on in the industry. We're going to continue to watch breaking news, and best way to stay on top of that, we're all constantly posting articles on these types of issues over on our website. Subscribe to our newsletter over at trucksafe.com/subscribe, and you'll get all of the breaking news and analysis sent right to your inbox. If you're interested in that, we don't do any spamming. At least I don't think we do. And so that's a great way to keep on top of all of these things. So with all of that said, transitioning into today's topic, obviously roadside inspections are an important part of commercial transportation. They are the primary way that the FMCSA and its state partners track carrier compliance with federal and state traffic and safety laws. And as we know, violations stemming from roadside inspections impact carriers and their drivers in several ways, including CSA scores, out-of-service rates, and ISS scores. One roadside inspection-related initiative we see each year, as we said early on, is the CVSA's International Roadcheck. It's a 3-day event when CVSA-certified inspectors conduct compliance enforcement and educational initiatives targeted at various elements of motor carrier vehicle and driver safety. So with the next road check coming up, May 14th through 16th, we wanted to spend some time talking about it, and more broadly, what carriers and drivers can do to better prepare for roadside inspections. So as I hinted at early on, we're excited to be joined today by a special guest, Master Trooper Brent Hoover of the Indiana State Police. Last October marked his 19th year with the Indiana State Police, and he's assigned to the Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division, where his primary duties include enforcing the state and federal regulations for commercial motor vehicles. Brent, welcome.
You got him muted.
Uh-oh, I got you muted. Hold on. We'll try that again. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, that's good. I messed up my line, so we'll try that again. Appreciate you guys having me on this afternoon. Looking forward to chatting with you guys over the next little bit.
Yeah, excellent. Well, before we get too deep into the weeds with roadside inspections, wondering if you could give the audience kind of your background and how you ended up in commercial vehicle enforcement.
Well, I'm a second generation trooper, more or less. Father was with the Indiana State Police, and of course, I grew up being around troopers. The culture, the family of the Indiana State Police, and for years thought, no, I really want to do something different. But as I got into college and school, I realized, no, I think I'm going to join the family business, and got in, made it through the academy, was appointed in October of 2004. Spent the first couple years of my rookie year up at the Lowell State Police Post up in Northwest Indiana, and then eventually transferred back home to Southern Indiana, originally from Santa Claus area, and spent the next few years being a road trooper, and just found myself levitating more and more towards the trucks. I enjoyed trying to reach out and do anything I could, get a little more information about trucking. Got my Part 3 or Level 3 Part A certification. And then a few years later, had the opportunity to volunteer and enter our Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division. Entered the division and basically been there ever since. Obtained my Part B or Level 1 certification, hazmat, cargo tank, more recently PVI, and have kind of worked my way up. Now I'm a Part B instructor for the National Training Center that partners with the FMCSA, CVSA to instruct new inspectors throughout Indiana and the country. And more recently, just received my Master Instructor certification as well to help train and work with our new instructors. So really found my niche working with trucks, working with the drivers and the carriers, and like the big thing you guys talked about, just education. I'm real big on the education, working with carriers, with the drivers, and feel like, yes, a roadside inspection, you can interact with just one driver in just a 20, 30, 45-minute time period. But if I can go out, work with a carrier, talk to 20, 30 drivers, look how many more people I can work with and talk about. So, and that's really been my area that I've been really enjoying the last few years. So any opportunity like this to work with you guys, I really appreciate the chance to do that.
It's awesome. Well, congrats on the new certification. And like I said at the start, great to have you here, and looking forward to hearing your experience with these inspections and helping carriers and drivers get prepared for them. For those who may not be familiar with inspections, maybe they're one of those new entrant carriers that we talked about at the start, or they're new to trucking. I was wondering if maybe you could start out by kind of walking us through the different levels of inspection. I know you mentioned some of them when you were talking about being certified to conduct the different levels. Maybe if you could give us a high-level overview of the different levels that you guys do.
Absolutely. So any new carriers, any new drivers, they always hear oh gosh, roadside inspection. What happens on a roadside inspection? So there's typically 3 levels of roadside inspection that are done. There's a level 1 inspection, which is what I call the full-blown inspection. That's the 37-step CVSA level 1 inspection. I call it getting the chalk blocks out, the creeper. That's where the inspector is going to go from front bumper to rear bumper, check everything in between, check the driver, check hours of service. That's your full-blown truck inspection involving the driver. The next step down is the level 2 inspection. So level 2 inspection is more or less what I kind of like to call the walk-around inspection. Drivers are familiar with doing their pre-trip inspection, their walk-around inspection. This inspection closely relates to the driver's pre-trip inspection. So, and that's the vast majority of the inspections that we conduct are a level 2 inspection. Level 3 is just a driver inspection. It's where we're checking the driver credentials, the hours of service, bill lading, stuff like that. All the paperwork gets wrapped up into the level 3. And then, of course, level 2 builds on the level 3, level 1 builds on the level 2, and so on. So, but typically, there are the 3 roadside inspections. Then, of course, you can go into special study, level 4, and then 5, 6, 7. But for the normal everyday driver, the level 1, 2, or 3 is the inspection that they would have the chance to be a part of.
So I have just a side question off of that. What turns a level 3 into a level 1? If you can sum that up in just a couple words, what turns a level 3 into a level 1?
Well, there's 2 facets to look at that. So an inspector like myself, I'm certified to do a variety of different inspections. So we have some of our road troopers that are just level 3 certified, and they're looking at the driver. They're looking for those type of violations. But for me, I typically walk up and I'm thinking in my head, okay, I'm going to do a level 2 inspection. So I'm going to be checking tires, brakes, lights. So real quickly, if I'm going to do a level 3 inspection and I come walking up and I see, tire looks a little bald there. There's a light out here. There's something going on here with the maintenance of the vehicle. That is real quickly going to make me go, you know what? I'm going to step back. I was going to do a level 3, but I am going to bump that up and conduct a level 2. Same thing with going from a level 2 to a level 1. We come walking up, and at that point in time, a lot of the brake violations I see I can see from just standing there looking under the truck. Some guys think that that this stuff we're finding is super complicated. It's really not. We just look under the truck. So I've had cases where I'm going to do that level 2. I come walking up, look under the truck, and go, those brake linings are cracked, or he's missing a slack adjuster. I think it's a good time to step it up to level 1 and go further with that.
Do you ever see any trends or patterns when it comes to, things ebb and flow? Or do you see like a rash of flat tires, or do you see a rash of bad brakes, or is it completely random just as much as the inspections are?
When it comes to the mechanical side of things, yes, it can be somewhat random. Just the other day, I was underneath a truck inspecting and found a loose suspension component that I hadn't found in a couple years. Kind of surprised me, but yeah. And then more so, like I always try to, when we're giving tips and different tricks to drivers, try to remind them, hey, like fire extinguisher, tires, stuff like that. When it gets hot out, fire extinguishers tend to go bad. When it gets extremely cold out, fire extinguishers I see typically tend to go bad. So that is some mechanical type things. Some of the other trends that we've been seeing in the state of Indiana, and we're talking about Roadcheck. So we're talking about one of the things we're going to be looking at is, of course, drugs and alcohol. But one of the trends we've been seeing here in the state of Indiana is drug possession on these roadside stops. Of course, marijuana, we can talk more about that if you want later, but marijuana is starting to be some states are starting to legalize it for recreational use, but we just want to remind everybody here in the state of Indiana, marijuana is still illegal, and it's also prohibited in CMVs by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. And some of those stats that we've seen is marijuana violations documented on ISP inspections have increased over 260% in a time period from 2020 to 2023. So we had 76 violations documented in 2020, and it up all the way up to 274 violations documented in 2023. So as far as vehicle trends, maintenance trends, they ebb and flow. You just kind of don't know what, but we have been seeing a driver trend. More and more folks are getting in trouble for the drugs in possession.
It tracks too with the clearinghouse data that we see come out pretty much every month with the significant uptick in not just marijuana, but all drug use reported to the clearinghouse at least.
Well, that's why they're adding fentanyl to the list, is because the massive amount of problem there is in the U.S. with that. It's showing up on the trucking side as well.
So definitely an issue to keep on top of if you're a carrier or a driver. You just can't have that stuff with you. You can't be using it. It's going to come back to bite you pretty hard.
Well, and here's the other one too. When it comes to when the drugs and alcohol, as far as road check and stuff goes, and we're going to get into that here in a minute, but if don't ever take someone else's, you hurt your back gardening and, you grab a couple of the Percocets or whatever and take them with you. If you've got medication in that truck that you don't have a prescription for and can't prove that it's yours, or in someone else's name on the bottle, that's just as bad.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So we started talking about what people are going to expect on Roadcheck. What does that look like from an enforcement point of view? Are you pulling more trucks? Are you looking at more folks? Is it all hands on deck? What should drivers expect when it comes to the 20 or 72-hour road check?
So what drivers should expect is that from our side of things, from the enforcement side of things, we're not doing anything different. We're still conducting our inspections, proper procedures when it comes to the steps of the inspections. Same thing with the drugs and alcohol. It's not like we're, you know, got dogs lined up at every scale house doing that. We're just doing being vigilant and just watching for those type of things. And a big part of the International Road Check is the education side of things, working with carriers, saying, hey, you know, when's the last time you checked your drug policy? When's the last time you had a program with your drivers? When's the last time you've, you know, done things like that? So that's on one side of the spectrum as far as the education. But when it comes to roadside, when it comes to enforcement, we're really just doing our everyday roadside inspections. And then at the end of the period, they pull the data and collect that data, analyze it, and then sometime this summer, they'll post the results from that time period. So
one half is, oh, sorry, go ahead, Brent.
No. And I'm sure, Brian, you've heard this. Drivers, road check's coming. I'm going to put my truck in the shop and take that week off on vacation. And it's like, well, we're just as dedicated. We're just as out there every other day of the year. The only thing really different is it's advertised. It's a chance for some free education from the state, and then just an enhanced period where they just pull more data than usual on certain targeted enforcement projects.
All right. Well, I think when we covered the drug and alcohol, the other piece is the tractor protection valve that they're going to be looking at this year. You know, we were talking about it before we came on, and kind of had to refresh my memory on that process. Make sure I had the PSI right when these things are supposed to activate. So can you kind of go through what that process looks like, what the driver's going to have to do, what you're going to be doing, and when you check the tractor protection valve?
Absolutely. And probably out of the 37 steps, when we're doing our level 1 inspection, this is one of the most popular, or one of the most hit on things that drivers look at as kind of funny. They go, you want me to do what now? You know, and Brian, I'm sure, you know, you taught CDL stuff for a long time. The steps that we look at it and test it is kind of totally different from when you get your CDL. I know.
Yep, sure is.
I know when I took my CDL test a few years ago and popped off a federal regulation, that inspector kind of looked at me funny and was like, what'd you just say? So I know that there's some discrepancy here, or not discrepancy, but differences. So what we're going to be doing, and the way the prescribed method is that we instruct our inspectors to do this, is the truck will be, of course, chalked, engine will be off, key will be in the on position, and it'll have a full supply of air pressure, somewhere 100, 120, wherever the truck, you know, govern kicks off. So at that point, we'll have the driver exit the vehicle and remove the red and the blue glad hands. Now, the drivers need to be aware that red glad hand is going to be under pressure. So like always, use gloves, safety glasses, 2 hands on the glad hand, remove it, and we're going to watch that air pressure bleed out. We're going to be checking the trailer to make sure there's no bleed back of air. And then the inspector is going to step up, look at the truck, watch the gauges, and also those valves in the truck. And what we're looking for is the trailer supply valve to close before pressure drops below 20 PSI. So if we either get the valve that pops, say it finally pops at 5 PSI, there's a violation, or say it never pops at all, or say it pops, and then when the driver applies the foot brake, gives it a full application, if we hear air coming out of either glad hand, that's indicating the tractor protection valve has failed to properly close. So that's how we're checking it. And in a way that drivers can kind of prepare for this is do exactly that. You know, flat parking lot, you got wheel chalks, chalk your truck, have your brakes set normal like you're driving down the road, released, and hop out. pop your red and blue glad hands, let the system bleed down, check to make sure your low air warning light and buzzer's going off, at it around 60 psi, and then wait for that valve to pop somewhere before it reaches 20, and then just try that, and that's the best way to prepare for this. Or because a lot of times drivers are not used to checking them that way, and so when we do it, it kind of catches them by surprise. Or you get that 20-year driver go, I've never tested it like this, or now I've never checked that before. So,
well, you definitely get a faster evacuation of the air system doing it the way you're talking about than having somebody sit there and stomp on the pedal for, a minute and a half and wear their cap out. But another thing that I tend to find with this, and Brian, you probably agree, Brent, I'd be interested in seeing what you have to say about it. I find that a lot of the places that I go for companies, they don't even know what this is. They don't even know what this test is. They might have had to do it when I got my CDL, we had to do it, right, to pass. But they don't do a correct pre-trip, and they haven't done a correct pre-trip in so long, in so many years, in some cases probably since they got the CDL, that they don't even remember this test. So when you're presenting it to them, do you ever get the, what are we doing here?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, because the tractor protection valve system test comes towards the very end of the level 1 inspection. So we're almost wrapped up. We got like 3 or 4 more things to check. And then we say, okay, we're going to check your tractor protection system. And the amount of drivers that look at me like this, like, what's that? And it's like, well, that's if your trailer comes off while you're driving down the road and you're losing air, it pops and reserves enough air for you to safely come to a stop. Oh, well, how do I do that? Don't worry, I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. But then in the back of your mind, it kind of makes you go, well, has the drivers prepped? Have they been taught? Have they been shown this? And no, and me personally going through, a CDL testing, getting a CDL, that really opened my eyes up to, okay, guys are taught this, but then as inspectors, we're taught to inspect it this way. So that's why I try to be real adamant to point out, hey, here's some differences when I do driver talks, when I work with companies, is there are some differences, and don't let it catch you by surprise, and be checking these things when you're conducting and doing your pre-trip inspections.
I just thought of a funny video idea for us.
What's that?
We should put me in a truck and you guys talk about this type of stuff and try and get me to do the things that I have no idea what you're talking about.
Like, wouldn't be hard. I mean, that's what I did for a while. Do something with
a glad hand, and I have
just tell you where the glad.
No,
just tell you to disconnect the glad hand.
Yeah, I'm just a lawyer. I have no idea what any of you guys are talking about. So I'm glad you're having a good time.
Yeah, we're having a blast. Well, and it's interesting because I remember a long time ago when I went through an orientation for a trucking company. That was part of the pre-trip during orientation. And I think that a lot of companies did away with that because drivers would fail it because they either didn't know how to do it, or it was something that they hadn't done since getting their license. And, if you made it part of the hiring criteria that a driver had to do this,
you never got hired. You
never got any drivers hired. So, that it is unfamiliar to a lot of folks just for not doing it at all. So I think that's one of the great tips to have drivers ready for this is, to get that information out to your drivers. There's documents on it. There's videos on it. At least the actual pump down process, not necessarily how the inspectors are going to do that. Now, Brent, that's the CVSA way to check it. So that should be pretty standard across all other states, or does that vary from state to state?
No, this is part of the CVSA, the 37-step inspection procedure, and that is taught the same and expected to be done the same throughout all of North America. So Canada, the U.S., and Mexico as well. So
okay. So our carrier should go ahead and expect that that's the way it's going to be no matter where they're at.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So as drivers get ready for this thing coming up, besides parking the truck and walking away for a few days, what is your best tips for having a driver be ready for a roadside inspection?
Well, I mean, and that's what I love about Roadcheck is they usually throw in 2 points of what they're looking for, usually something to do with driver looking, and then also something with maintenance side of things. The driver thing this year, I mean, it's like you want to pass the test, don't do drugs. I mean, don't have it in your possession. Don't
don't fall out of the truck.
Exactly. Don't be drinking. Don't be doing the drugs and stuff like that. That's the best way I could say to prepare for that. Second is on this tractor protection valve. Take a few minutes, familiarize yourself with it. Hop out, do it to your truck. I've personally seen where I check a tractor protection valve, it fails the test, the driver pulls out of the inspection barn, goes out, airs up the truck, pumps it down again, and comes back in and says, hey, I can't get it to do it again. And we go out and try it again and again. That, like anything else, that's a mechanical part. If you're not using it, exercising it, checking it over, and once it's documented on the inspection, it's documented on the inspection. And kind of like we talked about in the break before, and this is not simply just a violation, okay, and go on. It's an out of service violation. So they're going to more than likely have to contact a mechanic, roadside service, something like that, come out and replace the tractor protection valve. So that's something, just try to once a week, check it. If you're owner operator that you're pulling your wagon all across the country, check it every so often, check it more so if you're dropping and hooking, and just add that as part of your pre-trip inspection, and do quality pre-trip inspections.
Yeah, we're constantly harping on that. I know, Brent. I'm just curious, putting aside kind of road check for the moment and the main things that are going to be the focus of those inspections. I'm just curious, from your experience doing this for so many years, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see drivers making when they pull up for a roadside inspection? I know they could be nerve-wracking, stuff like that. What are some easy things that drivers can do to get themselves prepared for those?
Like anything else, any involvement with law enforcement inspectors is going to make you nervous. I encourage guys, hey, let us know if you've never been through this before, because we get drivers that they go, you know what, I've never done this before. Tell me what I need to do. And it's like, you know what, those are great. It's the ones that, well, I've been through this 20 different times. I know exactly what you're going to do. They're hitting the brakes, flashing lights, and we got to go, whoa, slow down. Let's back up. I got a list of things I got to check, so let's go down through it that way. So, if you've been through them before, if you've never been through it before, just listen to the roadside inspector. Listen to that officer. Yes, these are 37 steps, but the way I conduct my inspection and the way the next guy conducts his inspection, he may ask for something a little different, but it's all going to be the same in the end type. So just be patient with the inspector, ask them what they need, and take your time. A lot of drivers, I'm always impressed. They have, a binder, can never find their paperwork. It's strewn all about, but yet you check their hours of service and they had 12 hours in the sleeper berth, and they claim they were waiting on a load. And it's like, you could have taken 10 minutes and organized your permit book and had it ready, just those little things. Take a few minutes, because it's so refreshing when that truck pulls in, everything's in the binder, everything's up to date. It makes the inspection go easier and makes that a better process for both the driver and the inspector.
I mean, we say something similar for DOT audits all the time, is that's half the battle, is making things run more smoothly through the audit. That'll get you through an audit so much quicker than any kind of substantive issues. It's like if you've got things organized and in the same order for every file that you turn over to the FMCSA investigator there, it just gets them out of your hair. It gets them what they need and gets them out of your hair so much quicker and makes things go so much more smoothly. So.
Well, Rob and I were communicating earlier in the week with, the cleanliness of your truck. And, the older trucks had it, but I don't think the newer trucks have it. They had that window down there in the passenger side door. That was the trash indicator window for inspectors. If that window was full, that was a prime candidate for an inspection, or the dashboard was just covered in garbage. That's easy pickings for you guys, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because, think about it like this. If you don't take a few minutes and throw out your trash when you're fueling up, are you taking a few minutes and looking at your lights? Are you kicking your tires? Are you checking on your truck during your pre-trip inspection? Because a lot of the violations we can find on just a mere walk around inspection. Now don't get me wrong, we utilize pits and creepers and find plenty of stuff underneath, but yeah, a lot of the violations we find that some drivers would consider nitpicky are stuff that are valid violations that are found just by walking around the truck.
Right.
I think one of the things that I've always pointed out is how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that's a lot of the times we're talking about survivability of these road or a roadside inspection. And it's not, obviously you want to survive it and be back on the road without an out of service and, all that. That's great. But at the end of the day, if you can avoid it, that's even better. So if you can keep your truck clean and your tires aren't bald and all your lights work and your pigtails aren't dragging the catwalk and you don't have a white T-shirt on without a shoulder belt strap coming across it that says, "Hey, pull me over and see what else I didn't care about." A lot of it goes to that piece of, "Hey, don't look at me," And if you can do a lot of those things, you can avoid it altogether rather than just worrying about having to survive it. So that's one of the things that I always pitch. We've got carriers here where I am in Virginia, and you automatically know who owns that truck because the chrome is polished, the lights work. It's great. Like the likelihood of you as an officer picking that guy over the trash hauler who hasn't washed his caked up mud off since 1993, you're probably going to think your time is better served picking on the trash truck. So that's probably where you're going to go. But that's always been my speculation. Am I wrong?
I would say for most officers, no, you're right on the money. But Brian, I think he's smiling. He knows me
I know
enough
where he's going with this.
Yeah. I like a good, clean, shiny truck just as well. But no, you're exactly right. And those dirty trucks, cracks and dry powdery rust, and all that.
I knew he was going to go there.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
That's his thing.
That's the look for that dry powdery rust. So, you're exactly right. Looking at the dirt, and I get that. Which one would you rather look at? Well, if it's 100 degrees out, I don't want to be underneath a dripping trash truck. But when he goes by and he's got bald tires and everything else, absolutely. But you're exactly right. Just showing that effort is showing effort in a lot of different areas.
Do want to touch on one thing before we're done here, Brent, is we have carriers ask all the time, or drivers ask to try when they're trying to improve their CSA scores, and they're asking, can we volunteer for inspections? What is the thought? What is the thought process for you on voluntary inspections, guys just trying to bring trucks in to improve their scores?
So, thought on this is that buried in the FMCSA's e-FOTM, and by buried, no, it's just an obscure passage that
everything's buried in the e-FOTM.
Exactly. Everything's buried. But so based upon a request from FMCSA to make this readily accessible, CVSA has added a statement to Ops Policy 5 that states that the North America Standard Inspection Process is not a periodic inspection program. So they want inspectors to stay away from routinely allowing volunteer for just trying to, so drivers can constantly have a current inspection. So it says the purpose is to identify drivers and vehicles that are unsafe, and inspectors do not do inspections upon request. And it has been an updated policy here with the Indiana State Police that our commercial vehicle enforcement division, that we won't entertain volunteers. So
through that e-photum, though, is the way that's stated, that could be that's pretty much nationwide, right? So that's part of the federal deal. That now I guess states can do it if they want, but if you're going to follow the land of the law of the land.
I wondered if there was kind of a standard like that, because the sense I've gotten over the last several years is that more and more states are hesitant to do voluntary inspections. Yeah. So I wondered if there had been some kind of directive like that had come down.
How long ago did that come down, Brent?
It's been pretty recent.
Okay.
In fact, when I was preparing for this interview, we did receive information that it has been updated and that it is new policy for our division.
Okay.
Wow.
That's a good question then.
Yeah,
look
good
at
question,
that.
good answer. Hey, we actually had a viewer submit a related, kind of related question that maybe we could tackle here. Put it right over Brian's and Rob's faces. Nick's asking, how often does a company's CSA score affect the likelihood of getting stopped or the level of inspection?
Well, I think, but Brent, before you answer that, I think we might want to clarify, because what they're seeing when you come across a scale, they're seeing the ISS score.
Yeah.
So now, granted, the CSA scores play
right
into that,
yeah.
But the ISS score is really the determining factor. So go ahead, Brent. You can answer on that then.
No, that absolutely. That's an outstanding question, because a lot of our scale facilities are set up with cameras that will scan the DOT numbers, plate numbers, and we can see that information as the trucks are coming down the line. So as inspectors, we can sit up there and go, you know what? I'm focusing on level 3 hours of service violations today. This company's got a high safety score with a lot of hours of service violations. And then they can pull them in and basically target that carrier for a specialized inspection, basically being, okay, we're going to, do this inspection and check for this. Same thing with, they got a very high maintenance score, or this truck was recently placed out of service for a violation. So let's bring it in, check, has the out of service been corrected? Has the maintenance been done like it was supposed to be? And then, of course, that happens enough, we're going to see that upward trend of, if the carrier driver's not been fixing that, then the scores are going to continue to go up. If they have been fixing and making those corrections like they're supposed to do, you're going to see those scores go down over time. And then they would be less likely to be selected for that random inspection. So that was a really good question. And
it's a question we get a ton of. It's a question we get a lot, is where carriers are under the impression that they're getting unfairly targeted for inspections for one reason or another. They think an officer's got it out for them, but we try and let them know that more often than not, it's because you've got a high ISS score. And that's the metric that is dictating how frequently your trucks are probably going to get pulled over for an inspection.
Yep.
So first things first, we got to get those metrics down to a point where you're not a prime target for these types of inspections. Not necessarily somebody's got something out for you. It's probably that your past roadside inspections have caused you to tick up in those measured categories, and now you have put that target on your back for those inspections going forward.
Well, I would think too that if... Go ahead, Rob.
No, I was going to say the exact same thing as Brandon. I just did some safety meetings for a company here in Virginia. Their ISS score for the past 10 years has been over 95. So they basically, the executive that was there at the meeting said, hey, you guys need to make sure everything is top notch before you go into King and Queen County, Virginia. They've got it out for us. It's like, King and Queen doesn't have it out for you. You got it out for yourself. Your ISS score is like 98 right now. So, it's indicative of your behavior. It's just an objective officer saying, hey, this is what they've been doing. This is their behavior. Let's pull over and see, are they still continuing in that behavior? So
conspiracies are more interesting, Rob.
I think there's something to it though, in the way of if an officer has inspected 3 of the same company's trucks and found roughly 3 of the same violations, once he sees number 4 come by, I think I'm going to take a look at that one too.
At some point it gets systemic, right? It's not just the driver forgot a light or a light went out once, just in transit. This is repetitive behavior. And, when this company specifically has been audited once every 18 months for the past 8 years. And the first thing the auditor said last year when he came was, I know you're new working with them, but we've done this every 18 months for the past decade. So it's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that our safety score was bad, but you should. So improve it.
Well, hey, we're about out of time here. That went by quickly.
It did.
But anyway, we probably better wrap things up here. Brent, we just wanted to say again, thanks so much for spending some time with us. This has all been critical information for folks that are getting ready for these roadside inspections, particularly with Roadcheck coming up. So really appreciate what you're doing and the educational content you're pushing out to help carriers and drivers better understand these rules. So thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Hey, absolutely been a blast to be here. And in the future, you guys need anything, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to work with you. And same thing with drivers and carriers based here in Indiana. Reach out to us. Let us know. We got different troopers like to go around and talk with carriers and drivers. So let us know how we can help. So again, thank you very much. And everybody be safe and be careful out there.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks, Brent.
Have a good day. Thanks so much. We're going to wrap things up for the show today. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Like I said, best way to keep in touch with us and on top of what's going on is by subscribing to our newsletter, trucksafe.com/subscribe. We'll send out information about upcoming shows and that type of stuff. You can also subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast and keep up to date with it that way. Anything else I'm missing, guys?
I think we're good.
Rob, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for jumping in, Rob.
These long-winded clients that we have sometimes. So anyway,
we love our clients. Yeah.
Yep.
But anyway,
the way Rob has his camera set makes me look tall. I like it.
Yeah, it's like we got a bar graph going here.
No, you know where this came from. In the Pete that I used to drive, we used to have like those 8-foot tall gear shifters and
gear shift.
I think my butt just got used to sitting that way. So here we are.
That's funny. Here, let's take a couple of these questions while we got a couple minutes left here. Emma's asking. Oh, this was a question for Brent. She's asking whether he had visibility into whether a particular truck that's rolling up has had an inspection recently.
They have the ability, I believe, to see that a vehicle's been put out of service. I don't know if they actually can see every inspection that the truck has been through previously.
And then she's also asking, how long will it take a company to get out of a 90 ISS point safety score, considering they are finally reforming their safety department?
Emma, my best guess there to you is, since it's that high, hours of service is probably an issue. Mm-hmm. You get your hours of service under control and get that out of alert, that ISS will drop out of the red instantly.
There's a methodology that the FMCSA uses to calculate your ISS score. If you ever want some light reading, aside from the ePhoto that we talked about earlier, go pull the ISS methodology, and it'll tell you, like, if you got 2 basics in alert status, you automatically jump up to the inspect category, stuff like that. But yeah, if you're at a 90, you're in the inspect category. It's probably going to take some work. You're going to have to as your CSA scores go, so goes your ISS score. So as your CSA scores improve, your ISS score should start to organically improve as well.
Well, and then using the hours of service as kind of a guide, because that's the one that carries so much weight. You could have low scores and everything else, and if your hours of service goes into alert, you're in the red.
Yeah.
So that's the one to really, really focus on to get that ISS down.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we better wrap it up there. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Really appreciate it. We will catch you next time.